The host unmuted me.
This is my fault. Forgot to hit this button. We haven't, but good news. We haven't made any motions yet. We have just discussed the simple subdivision for the Panormius plan of lots, which is compliant with all required subdivision design.
All right.
Did anyone want to repeat any of their questions for the good of the video?
I'm good.
Okay.
No.
And Chris, can you just hit the continue button on your computer so we can get that on the screen? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Anyone want to comment on this particular project? Okay. Could I have a motion then to recommend town council approve the Panormius plan of lots, simple subdivision?
I'll move for the simple subdivision of the lots.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Okay.
I heard that from Rob. Sounds like you're good now. Okay.
Okay, second item on the agenda is a review of the Bowler Plan preliminary final subdivision application. 9220 Willoughby Road.
Yes, so actually, the applicant's engineer gave me a call earlier today and requested that they actually hang on until at least next month, potentially, I don't know if maybe Mr. Fuller will tell us if we officially need to vote to table it, but there's additional information on grading and utility availability. I think originally when the plan was submitted, it was submitted more as almost a simple subdivision, since there are only a couple lots being graded, but we do need all of that utility and grading information for a plan of this size. So once they have finished, doing all that and had the engineers review it, they will be coming back.
Okay. Should we vote to table this?
Steve,
Since
you are
it's on the
able
agenda?
to unmute yourself if you feel that that is necessary. Please let us know.
Yeah, I would.
Wow. What was that?
That was not what I thought was going.
Say that again, please.
Should we table this?
Yes, we want to know if we need to table this officially.
Well, we haven't accepted for.
Oh.
So.
You can't.
Okay, let's try. Okay, Steve, your mic is really blown out today. Not sure why. Everyone else is working. So how about this? Why don't you just type it to me and I will read it for the good of the group. While we're at it, Rob, why don't you give us a sound check?
I'm still here.
Okay,
your
so
sound's good.
it is definitely Steve and not us.
Steve, you're coming through as a loud screech.
Yes.
Technology is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, we always seem to get the fun Zoom issues. All right. Well, let's see.
He's probably trying to fix it at home.
Yeah. Well, we can.
If
you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Now we can.
Okay, so sorry for screeching at everybody. This has not been, this is the Bowler. It has not been accepted for review, so I don't think there's a need to table it at this point. They've requested it to be removed from the agenda, so we can just remove it from the agenda and put it on the next time and accept the application for review at that point.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good.
And Chad, Kim told me that I'm a little hard to hear, so if you don't mind scooting the mic in between us, that should be. All right. Let's hope these are our only sound issues.
My goodness. All right, the third item on the agenda is the Mccanna Square Master Plan Amendment. Initial presentation and discussion.
Yes, so we do have Mr. Jay Plodowski here from CEC. I do want to note that when I was drafting the agenda last week, we got an update since then from the developer. The one reason that I didn't have this already slated for a tentative motion when I sent this out was because there was a question about one of the townhome blocks having at least a 10-foot setback from the curb. The developer has since given us a response letter indicating that they are going to make sure that there is a 10-foot setback from all of, basically all of those the yards have at least a 10-foot setback. So this could be considered for a motion tonight if you all are amenable to that, but we'll get to the presentation and everything before we get there. So the reason that this is coming up today is because to use some of the performance standards that are in the C5 master plan development for multifamily housing townhomes particularly, which have much reduced setbacks or normal code. You have to do that in the context of laying out this master plan. If you do the master plan, it allows you to use those sort of more mixed use friendly development standards. The original master plan, I think, had office and flex space in the upper portion of the townhome lot. And it had, I don't know that they had laid out exactly what they were going to do for the bottom left corner of this whole development, which is beside the Continental section. So I recommended, if you want to use these performance standards, let's take it through the formal review process, because at some point the master plan was approved by council and the planning commission. So this is essentially an amendment to that plan that was originally approved. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
All right. With that.
Okay. The one thing I'd like to say is Marty is on the phone. He's the applicant for this, but he had mentioned that the host is not allowing video or mute. That might be why you're having.
Oh, no,
issues, no?
we always shut off the microphones of everybody that isn't actively presenting. I don't see him in the list anymore. He may have disconnected, but in the waiting room. Now that his application is up, we will send him a mic and camera request.
There you go. Okay, I guess he's up there.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, hold on one second. I was trying to unmute and do my video and it kept saying the host would not allow me to do it. So
Yeah, until your application is up, we keep everybody shut down unless.
okay. All right.
Sorry for the confusion.
Perfect.
Do you want to pull up the PowerPoint?
I sure can. Just a second to load it on the laptop here.
I guess while RJ's pulling that up, my name's Jerry Kladowski. I'm with Civil and Environmental Consultants. We are the consulting engineer for Marty's group, which is called Laurel Communities. We have done all the civil engineering for this project from its infancy until now, and we are going to help Marty out with his proposed development of these townhomes. So the plan you see up here right now is the amended master plan. The large H-shaped building is the senior living building that was done back in 2019. That's when the original master plan was brought through the town for the approval. Recently, as last month, we were in for the retail portion, which is in the northern part of the property. Now we are just seeking to revise the master plan, sort of as RJ alluded to remove the office flex space from the westernmost parcel, which is lot 3, and replace it with townhomes. Additionally, Marty's proposing to add approximately 22 townhomes in the northern portion to bring the total to around 58 townhomes. The total project area is about 25 acres. The townhome development portion is around 11 or 12 acres. All of the infrastructure for the entire development is already in place. We will have some minor service utilities to bring into the townhome area as far as water and stubbing for electrical and gas as well. Stormwater is all addressed with the original master plan. And actually, as a point of note, this plan actually reduces our total imperviousness by about a half an acre. So with this layout, we've managed to gain about a half an acre of additional green space that will help with stormwater management in and of itself. The plan has been recently submitted to the fire marshal and subsequently approved. There was some documentation that went to RJ's attention from the fire marshal, indicating that the fire hydrant placement as well as the turning templates that were used for the fire trucks are both adequate to service the development. Traffic is anticipated to generate less traffic than the original office flex use. So during the land development process, we will update the traffic report and submit that. If you could flip to the next slide. Well, before we go, is there any questions about the plan and what we're proposing to have amended?
You have a copy of the original plan.
Not on me, I do not, but I can certainly share it.
Can probably pull that up if we're curious.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious to see what we're switching from
Give me a second.
to.
While she's pulling that up, last time you were here, this western or left-hand portion was not even in discussion. What was in discussion was a number of parking spaces. Has that been resolved, or
Yes.
are we going to get to that?
No, that was resolved as part of the retail supervisors meeting. We submitted a plan prior to supervisors meeting that added the 12 additional parking spaces, and that was approved.
Okay, does that not go through us? How does that bypass us?
Well, so the planning commission recommended to approve the plan contingent on the 12 parking spaces being added.
Right.
So once you recommend something, it leaves the planning commission and goes to
Okay, so
town council.
we should just assume that it got done. is it?
Yes, it was,
Okay.
it was done before council approved it.
All right, thank you.
So you can see there's a lot more imperviousness, all completely on the west side. The flex office space was basically property line to property line with parking spaces and building. As the same with the northern part, where there was some proposed retail and a large parking field. So with the master plan, we're going to reduce that imperviousness and provide some very nice townhomes.
Oh, yeah, and I should correct myself now that I'm looking at this original master plan. The office flex space is actually in that lower portion of townhomes. With the building that I was thinking of is marked as retail in this original plan,
Is that the one just above the main street?
right here.
There, yeah.
And then this is the flex office, which is the lower townhomes.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay.
Let's get us back to the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Ready for the next slide?
Yeah, next slide.
Yeah, so I can speak to this. My name is Marty Gillespie with Laurel Communities. We're a developer and builder in Pittsburgh. We do stuff in the suburbs, and then we also do projects in the city. I just had a couple examples of some mixed-use projects that we've been involved in. Bakery Square is a mixed-use project in the Shadyside East Liberty area where Google and Phillips are located. That has 350 apartments. It has retail, restaurants, and then we built 52 townhomes right behind the apartments. So it has that urban feel, the walkability. The buildings are pretty close to each other. It was a real successful project. We sold 52 units in a year. The average price point in this community was about $850,000. Next slide. We're currently in a project in the Strip District. This is a site view. You can see the river. That's the terminal building down by where Permane Brothers is. And then you could see in between the terminal building is a row of 46 townhomes. We're building those. We're just about finished. And then across the street from us is another 700 apartments. So that's a mixed use project that Buncher Company owns all of that property in the Strip. And basically it's the same kind of thing where you've got retail, you have restaurants, you have neighborhood services, the rental. So we had a lot of success here. We sold 46 units, and again, in about a year and a half, the average sell price down there is around $950,000. The next slide. So what we do is, the nice thing with townhomes is you can create a good floor plan that you know is very marketable and people like. And then what we try to do is we try to take the facades of the townhomes to match the community. So since this is in the strip, these have a lot more brick to them because the strip is industrial, it has the brick. Bakery Square was a little bit more modern because we had the office buildings there. So we used more windows, a little bit more hardy plank. We have not done the final architecture for the townhomes in Mccanna here, but we're going to want to make sure that we do something that is cohesive with Continental and what they're building, as well as Kevin Doherty Adventure, that it all kind of fits together and has a nice neighborhood feel. The next slide.
1 second, excuse me.
Go
Are
ahead.
you planning on 2-story, 3-story? I mean, what's your tentative thought there, since these look like the 3-story?
Yeah, so basically this is exactly what it would be like, because the site at Mccanna Square is flat. So your first level is going to have your garage and then a flex room on it. The flex room,
Okay.
people use it as a bedroom or exercise room. Then the first level, looking here, that has your dining, living, kitchen area. Then the next level has the that's the bedroom level. So you could do it with 2 master suites and a loft. You could do it with 3 bedrooms. And then we have an optional rooftop terrace that gets built into the trusses of that, the top floor. So you see where the dormers are in this picture?
Yeah.
Okay, so behind that, you would have a outdoor terrace area. I think about 40 to 50% of the people chose that option. So these are all features that we put into our townhomes, even though McCandless is not in the city. This is kind of like that urban suburban feel because you're going to be in this, mixed use neighborhood. But yeah, it'll be similar to that, where we have the 3 stories out of the ground.
And how many square feet would they be?
They're going to range from roughly 1,900 to 2,700 square feet,
Okay,
depending on the options that you put in there. They all
Right,
have
okay.
they all have 2-car garages,
okay,
and then just different options.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there a proposed price point for McCandless?
No, not yet. They're not going to be as expensive. We're doing a project in Peters Township right now that I think is kind of a similar Peters, McCandless, or similar areas. The price range of those is like $475 to $600. So my gut feeling is it's going to be in that range. Probably the average is going to be in the mid 5s, low 5s.
Is there any plan whatsoever for any kind of affordable housing within the group?
No, this is market rate. So it's basically going to be a market rate townhome project.
I hope you still use some brick.
We're going to use the townhomes. We won't use any vinyl. We'll use a mix of brick, hardy plank, and stone. And then we'll probably, my gut is, I think you see here, we have black windows, the black frame. I think
Yeah.
we'll do that to give it a little bit more of a contemporary flair.
Okay,
All right, next slide. Oh,
Well, just a second. Everything in this complex so far seems to be white. Are you going to try to continue that?
So RJ, are you in control of the slides?
I am.
Can you jump to the last one?
Yes.
It's kind of interesting you asked that question.
Just wanted to get out of the PowerPoint there so that we didn't go through the whole presentation.
There's not a lot of slides. Yeah, that's all right. There's only 6.
There we go.
So this is an example, again, same townhome, just changing the facade and going with a black and white theme. I don't know yet. We'll work with our architect. I'm not sure if going with all white is going to put too much white into the community. I think we'll definitely have some units that have this white facade, because I think it looks pretty sharp with the black windows and the black roofs and things like that. But I have a feeling we'll do some palettes that also mix it a little bit, if that answers your question.
Okay, you'll be back in on this at some point in time, I take it.
Yeah, this tonight is just for the master plan to get it amended to have the townhome use. We'll come back through for land development approvals, and all the details.
Okay.
Can you jump back, RJ, like 3 slides?
There we go.
This
There's the
kind of
kitchen.
shows you the fit and finish on the inside of these townhomes. I think this one was in Bakery. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, this is the family room and bakery. Just to give you an idea, these are high-end, luxury townhomes. And then the next slide. Yeah, so we're back to the master plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the townhomes. Again, tonight we're talking about the master plan amendment. We're excited about the opportunity to add the townhome element to this community. We think it's very complimentary. Continental's excited about it. I know Kevin is excited about it because these will be people, for sale users, a mix of age ranges that'll be able to utilize, the park and ride, the retail that Kevin's going to do and things like that.
And Kim had a question, I believe.
Okay. Kim?
Hi, Martin. I have to tell you, the development that you've done in the strip is pristine. I rode my bike past there and I was like, these are amazing. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
They really are. I hope that you will not consider all white. There's a lot of white down there.
Yeah.
So I would really like to see, I don't want it to get like a ghost town reputation or something because it's so white, honestly.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, incorporating some, but please, I think too much white will be a little scary, actually.
I'll make sure to tell the architect that we won't go that route. That's
Okay.
fine.
I did have a question where you showed the houses that had the sidewalk. I think it was maybe the first one or the second one. It looks like the sidewalk is set kind of back. I'm a little concerned that when people park in their driveway that they're going to block the sidewalk. I can't tell how much space is there. The sidewalk seems like it's kind of, I like it set back from the street, but I'm worried that people are going to block it with their cars. What do you think about that?
So what you're looking at is that's a very good question. The photo there is of the street that is a city public street. So do you see the planters right off the curb that are really
do.
deep?
Yes.
So the city standard, Walnut Capital was the master developer for this. This is the public road that services the Google building, the apartments, and the first little row of townhomes. Our setback off the street is not as deep as those. So we'll have room to be able to put the cars in the driveway. These front entry units, they'll be able to put a car in there without it coming all the way into the sidewalk.
Okay, all right, good. And then the other question I had from the master plan is it looks like where the flex building used to be, it looks like the sides of those buildings, the sidewalks are dead against the sides of those buildings. Is that what I'm seeing? I can't see these
Yeah,
numbers.
go to the site plan,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
One that we wanted.
Yeah.
So if you
Do
can
you see
zoom
what I'm
in.
talking about? The sidewalk kind of
Yeah.
down on the bottom, not the first row, but the second row that are going horizontal.
Yeah, I just had a call last week with our architect and with Jerry. You're talking about, can you zoom in to the
Point.
townhome section, RJ?
I don't think I can zoom on the PowerPoint, but I could do it on the PDF. Hang on.
That's all right. So when you first come in, Kim, I think what you're referring to is when you first come in, if you came down the road and you made a right-hand turn to the lower portion where the office was.
Yes.
Okay. That first building on the left has the sidewalk that's running right up next to it.
And the one
Yeah,
lower
we're
on the
not,
street does.
yeah,
yes.
we're not going to do that. They can't go right up against the unit.
That's what, thank you. That's
Yep.
such a privacy issue. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, we picked up on that during the design.
Well, you don't need me at all then. You're doing.
No,
good.
this is good. You're giving me good feedback. We're not going all white. We've already decided that. So
Okay. All right. I
yeah,
just
that's
didn't-
good.
I didn't-
RJ, she's referring to unit number 1 on there. If
Okay.
you see how the sidewalk is right on the side of the building,
Mhm.
we're not going to have that condition.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep.
What
Same
about
thing on number, the next one
18.
across the street.
Okay.
what? you don't seem to have enough room to park a car in the driveway on those also.
Those are rear entry. So the cars won't be able, the rear entry units will be, the cars will go in the garage, but there's not space for, you can't put a car into there because that'll protrude into the cartway. And like in the strip district, you probably, I don't know if you went behind.
I didn't go behind, no.
Yeah, so in the strip district, they're all rear entry and some of the bakery are rear entry. When you have the rear entry condition, you don't park a car in the driveway itself, only in the front. And again, these are details that I have to go through with Jerry and the architect to make sure everything is in order for the land development plan that we'll get into. But like I said, I think we're excited that townhomes we think would be a nice use for this Mccanna Square community.
And Marty, I got two questions, comments. I appreciate the idea of not putting that sidewalk right next to those two units. But on the flip side, we want to make sure that the sidewalk that's going in front of those units somehow is back connected into the main sidewalks on the site. So I don't know what the magic will be there, but you'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
And then the second question is, it's a two-part question. How did you determine the number of guest parking spots? And then second of all, to me, it would be much more practical to put some of those on both sides of the main drag. Because if I'm going to visit somebody in unit 16, that's kind of a hoof if I got to park all the way down there.
Yeah, so because it's this urban suburban style design, we have the guest parking in that little courtyard area that's closest to Continental on the
Right.
screen. That's the centralized guest parking. Because they have 2-car garages, we're going to use that, as well as we want the community to kind of be together. There's a common green across the street on the one side next to the townhomes above on Kevin Doherty's side. That has parking, angled parking right next to the courtyard. So this isn't like pure suburbia where you've got a ton of guest parking. Down in the city, there's no guest parking for those 46 units. We don't have any spaces, but it's city, so they can park out in the front on the city street. So that's kind of how we're determining that.
Okay, I'm not sure I buy that idea. Because you just said that the units that have the garage in the back, you can't park in the driveway anyway. So if I was living there and I was having a friend over in any of those units, they can't park in my driveway. They have to go to the guest.
Correct. Yeah,
Got-
they'd have to go to the guest parking. Yep.
And you
that's
got
correct.
eight guest spots for 57 units. Doesn't
Well,
seem
this
like a
side of
very
the
good,
street, this side of the street has, Jerry, I don't know, is it like 30 some units?
37 there, yeah.
Yeah,
But-
so that guest
but-
parking would get utilized, and then the parking on Kevin Doherty's side, the angled spaces, we're assuming that those people would use those spaces.
But we just beat up Kevin Doherty because he didn't have enough spots for his development.
But
So
he has,
I don't want to be robbing Peter to pay Paul.
so I think what we'll do is we'll make sure that when we come back through for the subdivision approval, we'll look at the ordinance and make sure that we have the correct parking ratio if there is one that's in the ordinance.
Okey dokey.
Any other questions? Okay.
And Brendan, I didn't have you on the screen. Are you all good? Okay. Well, if you all don't have any questions, like I said, I originally didn't have it scoped on the agenda because I wasn't sure if they were gonna have to go to the zoning hearing board for, the setback variance. You have the option, if you want, to make a recommendation conditional upon the revised plan showing that they have at least 10 feet from the curb. Or if you want, of course, you could, wait for further information actually shown on the plan for them to redraw it. But
Well, this is still schematic, am I correct?
yeah, this is just
Yeah,
the
this is-
master plan.
Just an
Right,
master
yeah.
plan, period.
not the full landfill.
Yeah, it's just to allow townhomes here.
And you're gonna make some changes to these ones on the bottom here. I would think we would want to see that again.
You will see it
Dan?
again.
I think we ought to see what these revisions look like once they come through.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should see this.
On the master plan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so you want to table it,
I would,
tonight.
we would like to table it.
okay,
Should we make a motion to that effect?
you would need to do that, yeah.
We could have a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table.
A second. Second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Didn't see anybody say no.
Okay, all right.
Is this the end of the development of this? Is there anything else that could be squeezed into this?
That's it.
Well, it would appear that this phase 3 or 3 and 4, however they need to would be the only thing else that would fit.
It's amazing how much is going in there. I had no idea.
Here's me. Okay, thank you, sir.
Great,
Thank you.
see you next month.
All right, thank you.
Okay. The fourth item on the agenda is review and recommendation of proposed rezoning of 10185 to 10201 Perry Highway to C3 Highway Commercial from R2 Single Family Home. Applicant proposes a vehicle storage lot for the future use.
This one is pretty self-explanatory, aside from pulling up the concept plan as the applicant discusses it. These properties are the ones that are right before Longview, basically the dividing line between where you really get into the flats and when you get into that Longview neighborhood. So I will go ahead and pull up the concept plan if that's
Sure,
good with
please.
you.
My name's Tim Fitzgerald. I'm representing the Pringle Family Trust. Mr. Pringle can't be here. He's asked me to do this for him. He's 87 years old, so this is probably his best setting. The properties are called contingent together, continuous together. You'll see that I sent a survey with 3 properties are together. They are right next to a car dealership. They start at the Longview and go northbound on 19 together. Our
This is
proposal.
the original survey, by the way, or the
Yes.
current conditions, just in case anyone's
Yes, I'm
wondering.
sorry. Yes, I apologize. I didn't
Hey.
make that.
Before you leave that one, RJ, the property behind there, is it R3 or what is it zoned?
R2,
These are all R2.
R2.
Okay, there was no designation on what that little piece was, so, okay.
Yeah, the ones, but yes, to the west of the property, they're all R2. Everything there is R2.
Is there any development on that property right now? Is there a home there?
There's a house there, yes. Mhm. What we propose is basically extension of if you look at the opposite side of the road, it is institutional and commercial all the way down to the road that's almost exactly across from Longview. We feel that it's just pretty much a natural extension. Also with their proposed site of a vehicle lot with the conditional use, of course. One of the biggest issues with anybody in that plan is pulling out a Longview. It's very hard to see going up 19. One of the things we proposed was put a 100-foot sight line, which would, by putting a parking lot there, we would be able to have it lower so you can see out and further up. So it'd be a better safety position. And also we would be eliminating 2 driveways that would be coming out of, that are currently there to come out on the 19. So it would be safe from a safety standpoint. It would be a benefit. Also the parking lot, we would make a restriction that if somebody comes out on a Longview, can only go to the left. So they can't, no traffic can go into the Longview plan. That would be one of our conditions we would recommend. Eventually, I think you're getting enough traffic along 19 there. You'll probably eventually have to put a light somewhere along there, but that's a future discussion. But our whole proposal there is with, it's a natural extension. The 3 houses that are there are small and not in the best condition. So it's a more better, I think, a better use of the land.
I assume that this is being developed this way for Schultz Ford.
Well, I have 2 dealers that would be interested.
It has a connection to the Schultz Ford lot, so.
Well, this particular, yes, sir, Mr. Gardner, this was drawn for, be connected to Schultz Ford, but another, Schultz Lincoln rather. But if another dealer bought it, would be just basically, that would be eliminated. It would be parking.
Okay, but then that would force all the traffic onto Longview.
Yes, you are correct, sir. If it was developed that, if somebody got it that way, yes. But again, the whole idea of the long view would be that if they're pulling out, they can only go left. There'd be no right turn. You know.
Whatever, okay.
Yeah, but if it was Schultz, it would be connected right to them, yes. That makes, Schultz is the best option.
Have you had discussions with Schultz?
Yes,
They are interested?
yes.
I would recommend not having the connection in Longview and make it go back out on the 19.
Okay, well, there is 2 driveways there. We could probably do that. I thought that was just an easier way, but whatever. We're not, this is concept, we're not locked in on either.
If Schultz buys this from you or leases it or whatever, would you eliminate the exit out onto Longview?
But we possibly could, which we thought that would be we were just thinking that was best, you know, for exit.
You can only,
Ingress and egress thing.
can you still go north or do you have to go south once you get onto the?
Just go south.
That's what I thought.
Go south and pulling out with the sight line, we thought would be easier for somebody to pull out. Anybody in the neighborhood would be easier to pull out.
But there's a left turn lane there, Ted, on 19 coming north that allows you to go on to Longview.
Yes. Yes, you can make, if you're coming north, you can make a left, pulling out right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What goes in that triangle in the bottom right hand side of your property?
That's where the side triangle is. We make that
Well, I
clear.
know that, but physically, what are you going to put in there?
We would be just, right now would be just some type of either mulch or rock or something to keep it. So there'd be nothing to block sight.
Would you have at least a ground cover of some sort?
We could do that, yes. Would keep it within the,
Could do grass.
yeah, I mean, we could keep it grass, it's not a problem. The whole idea was to keep the line of sight better for somebody to pull out, because I've not only have pulled out many times, but I've also cut that whole hillside myself, and it's a pain in the butt, and it's hard to pull out.
I'm sure it
It's,
is.
and it is actually, the people in the neighborhood have complained about it because it's hard to see.
How much does this site slope?
I don't know that.
That might not be
It's not-
something.
It's kind of, the site itself is flat, but it's built, it's a little bit of a hillside. I would say 8 feet, maybe 9 feet high from 19 up.
Yeah, as 19 goes south, that site stays high.
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
You're the real estate agent for the family?
Yes.
You're not the developer?
No, sir.
Is there a developer for this project?
Not yet. The site plan came from MDM. They did it for us.
And you're suggesting that it be turned into a parking facility for Schultz or somebody else, but it's designed as almost a commercial parking lot. Is that what somebody like a Schultz needs? I would think they need nothing but a flat space that they could stack as many cars as they could fit in there, not
Well,
having.
ideally they would, but I think for the conditional use, we need to have like where the trees and everything are. I think that's part of your guys'
It's a
setup.
buffer.
the buffer zone and that's what you guys require. So that's what.
But does that work against Schultz wanting to use this or buy this if they are getting into something that is not functionally what they need? I've seen various dealers, I mean, they park anywhere they can find them and they're stacked together like cordwood.
That is correct, but this again is the site plan, the buffer. We try to illustrate the best we could. And I mean, one of the things could change is maybe where the little islands are at or something like that. So
Well, I guess my point is, the design does not seem to be conducive to what it is that you're trying to achieve for the property.
well, it's what we were able to come up with MDM it is still a proposed site. Could change a little bit, but I don't think it's too terribly much to stay within the guidelines which you guys have for buffer zone.
Dan, they can stack them in there too.
Well, but then why do we even have this concept plan if it's not going to be what the concept is?
Well, I'm just telling you, I mean, they could double
Well, we-
park them in the aisleways too. This just shows per our ordinance.
Right.
And I'll defer to RJ what the number of spots are they could put in there and what the buffers would need to be.
So,
Right.
so something to remember here is that they are coming here for rezoning.
Correct.
Right? So this is just a concept plan. If this is rezoned, they don't have to put this plan in here. They can change it to any, RJ, help me here. They
Yep,
can,
that's
they
correct.
can change this to anything that fits the C3, I think they're going to C3, the C3 use. So this plan means nothing. It's a concept plan only. So they're saying, this is what we think is going to go here. This is what we kind of like to do. This is kind of interest we have. But once this is zoned to C3, they can put a McDonald's there because that's what's allowed in C3.
Yeah,
Well,
assuming the
well,
land development, all
yeah.
the zoning and whatnot could.
Right.
I mean, you.
Or-
yes,
Please let RJ speak. RJ, is this true or no?
That is accurate, yes.
A C3, also you can have a gas station in a C3, and I don't know that the neighbors are really going to want a gas station. I mean, a gas station is allowed in a C3.
So the reason why we're even discussing this, guys, is because we had discussions with car dealer about this exact spot. It's only 0.8 acres max, 3/4 of an acre is pretty the most usable space. Putting any type of building with building lines and everything else, I don't know if it's realistic to put any type of actual building on this. That's why, I mean, we put the vehicle, this was the best use of the lot, of the space that we have, if we can do commercial.
Hey,
So
RJ,
that's where
or RJ or Dan, could we do this as a conditional use so that if anything else came back, it'd have to go through the system? Is there a
Well,
way to do that or
so
not?
a vehicle parking lot is a conditional use, an offsite vehicle parking lot, but anything like that would come into play at the land development stage. At the rezoning stage, you can't lock it to just one use.
But I'm saying instead of rezoning it, just let them submit it as an R3 to go to zoning hearing board and
Well,
ask it for a conditional use.
that's, no, a conditional use isn't for an offsite vehicle parking lot isn't available in any of our residential districts.
Okay,
They went to the hearing board, they would use variance.
Oh, say that again,
Well-
Steve.
Sorry, that's C4.
Your sound is doing that thing again. Try shutting your camera off. It worked last time when you did that.
Go
All
ahead.
Is that better?
No.
Is that better?
Kind of. And yeah, Brendan also, I'm gonna send you an unmute request as well.
I didn't hear what Steve said.
None of us did.
Okay.
I'm trying to work on my, is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying is, despite the way our ordinance is drafted, there is no reversionary zoning under the MPC. So what Kim and RJ are saying is correct, that if we would rezone this to R or to C3, any use that's permitted or as a conditional use under C3 could go in there. The next step of the process would be a land development plan, subdivision plan, and or conditional use. Now, if the applicant would go to the zoning hearing board, and this is what I was saying when my microphone went wonky, is that if they go to the zoning hearing board and request a use variance, the zoning hearing board has the ability to permit an individual use as well as place conditions on that rezoning. So from my perspective, if you don't want to open Pandora's box, you don't and let any C3 usage in these lots, you really don't want to go down this road. If the group, if council is amenable to some sort of parking type area for overflow or display for car dealership, and then I think we need to send the applicant to the zoning hearing board and let them take their chances there for a use variance. Now, it's a high standard, but it does give the town the ability to participate, right? I could enter my appearance on behalf of the town and participate in the hearing if that's the direction we wanted to go. And we could ensure that the use was limited to the car dealership or car parking use, as well as place additional conditions on any rezoning. Whereas here, we can't, and council can't place conditions on a rezoning request. We can't have conditions that say it reverts to the old zoning district if they don't put in a parking lot, if they don't get their permits in a particular amount of time. That's just, it's not permissible under the MPC. It's basically contract zoning, which was, held to be illegal in Pennsylvania in the 80s by the state Supreme Court in the Carlino versus Whitpain Township case. So,
But by going the other direction, we can get to the same result.
you could, yeah, you could, but it is a very difficult burden to reach on a use variance. But that's for the applicant to consider. If this group would turn it down, if council would turn it down, that might be an option.
So my question is, how do I get this done?
Well, I understand what has been said so far, and I understand that any use permitted within C3 could eventually occupy this space. Seems to me we ought to be taking a very generic or general question, and that is, do we want to extend C3 from the north into this area or not? Are we interested in extending C3 along Perry Highway? That's really what's happening. To have this parking lot description in front of us is candidly meaningless because we don't know what this will turn into.
Right.
So what we should be trying to determine is it in the best interest of McCandless to extend C3 from the northern portion to this property?
Well, we have to consider the residents right there, the people across the street, the houses behind it. What are their expectations? And we have to consider those. And it could have any of those uses that are allowed in the C3. We have no control of them.
So if Steve goes back, what Steve was saying about this other conditional change or what I'm talking, and I don't have the verbiage, I apologize, since it's R2, that you're saying you could try to do it as a parking lot with an exception?
So what Steve is referring to is a use variance.
Okay.
That's just a different process that goes before the zoning hearing board instead of the planning commission and town council.
Okay.
I don't want to try to play a lawyer on TV here. So,
Sure,
I would recommend taking a look at the criteria for approval for those, at a separate time. But there are a different set of, hardship things that you have to go through at a zoning hearing board hearing versus rezoning and then just proceeding with one of the permitted uses in that district.
I have a question for the gentleman who's representing this property. I forgot your name. I'm sorry.
Tim Fitzgerald, I'm sorry, yeah.
Tim. Tim, are these residential properties currently occupied?
They are for sale. The folks are not living there right now.
Okay, how long have they been empty?
I'd say people come and go in them probably maybe 15, 20 days, maybe 30 days max. Because they come back and visit and because their sons also use the houses.
So there are people living in the houses now.
Yes.
Okay, so they are functioning as residential properties. I couldn't tell from the road if someone lived in them or not.
Yes. Well, they would like to be out of them 100%, but they don't want to, obviously don't want to abandon them.
Okay. The way I have looked at this is, this is a very, very difficult space with the highways, Old Perry Highway coming off there, Perry Highway right there. It's a difficult space. If you've been following any of the sidewalk issues in council, you know what a difficult space it is. It's a hard pull-out place. It's a hard cross place. It's a loud place. I don't know. I guess that someone can live anywhere, is willing to live anywhere. I don't know how many people really want to live just dead on Perry Highway. If this were the use, if we were sure this was the use, I would wholeheartedly support this because there's a lot of nice green space there. They're really helping out Longview. Haven't heard any words about a sidewalk. I also don't see one on there, which of course we would need. But that to me, changing this to commercial, a soft commercial, and I know we can't control that, would be ideal for this property because not all, Greg, right? Because we've already been through this further down by council, not by council, by the memorial. So we know it's not all residential, but most of it is. So I don't have a problem with it being C3. I don't have a problem with this development being there, but I don't want it to get away from us. That's all. That's what I have to say.
Why are the buffer yards identified as not applicable in the plan?
What do you mean?
In the dimensional standards for C3 highway commercial district, it has the required and then proposed. And I just see the 36,400 square feet in gross lot area. Then it just says not applicable all the way down to buffer yard A.
So are you saying that they're not required because it's a small lot to have a buffer yard?
No, I'm just wondering why it says not applicable versus substantively addressing what the ordinance requires for the buffer yard.
That would be you, Mr. Developer.
Anybody there?
Hey, now can you hear us?
Now we hear you now.
There we go. We bumped a button when we were changing power cords. All right, so we could hear all of you. Brendan, you had a question about a buffer yard. I figured out that something was funny with the sound because Greg was talking and then the Zoom started talking. So I will quickly address that buffer yard question and then maybe we can go back to Greg so that he has an opportunity to finish what he was saying at the time. So regarding the buffer yards, I mean, that's not something that has been reviewed yet, because again, as a concept plan, it's just something that our rezoning request protocol requires a developer to submit, but it's not reviewed for zoning compliance because, you know, as we've discussed extensively, there's no real guarantee that that is what will be occurring. Was that the gist of your question? I'm sorry, we were trying to fix the Zoom as you were asking it.
It's the gist of the question, but it gets into the functionality of the space and what could be done. In that if this abuts, but the R3
It's just R2.
It's R2.
Or two.
too.
Yeah.
So what's the rear setback requirement? 100 feet?
Yes, it is 100.
So functionally, what could you do with a 100-foot rear yard setback for this proposal to begin with?
That is a very pertinent question.
There's nothing you can do with a building.
I mean, I guess that kind of gets to my point the long way around. If your front yard setback is X, your rear yard is Y, could you actually do anything other than a parking lot here without, doing an assemblage of other lots, tacking it on, and then seeking rezoning of those? Just based on the unique contours of this.
Essentially, you know, if they wanted to
Say
do
that
it,
again, RJ, I'm sorry.
they would have to go for a multitude of setback variances if that was the scenario and somebody was trying to do anything else. Now, I mean, would they get them? I don't know, you know, but
But it's just, again, I come back to saying that the parking lot seemed to be the best use of the space. It isn't that big. It's not that wide. It's, you know, it's 0.8 acres, really 3/4. And we thought by putting the parking lot, lowering it to where you're making the left hand, or making the sight line, raising that up, make it easier for somebody to pull out along view, and also making any traffic, if it did go there, going right or going left then onto 19 there, so they couldn't go back into the plan. We thought that would be the best use of the property from what it is, because as you said, RJ, living that close to, or maybe it was Kim, I'm sorry, living that close to 19, it is not that popular of a place.
Right. And a gas station couldn't even meet those setbacks,
That
right?
is correct. That is correct.
Right. So a gas station is not an option. So we can't say, although people don't want a gas station, it won't fit on there. So that's out.
But
So,
if they buy the property behind it, then what?
well, yeah, well, then
Then
that
they
would
have to
have
put
to
that
be rezoned too. And that would have to be rezoned also.
And
Yeah,
they'd
they'd
be saying, hey, we have a piece of C3 here. We want this other piece C3.
And we can say no,
Oh,
because
you've
it backs
cracked
up into a residential property.
you've
we can
cracked
deny
open
that.
Pandora's box. Mr.
Greg,
Fitzgerald,
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to finish your question earlier, since when we were having the sound issues, you were trying to talk. I'm sorry, Rob. I just didn't want to get too far afield from what he was
No,
trying to
that's
say.
okay. Let him continue because I can jump in later.
Okay.
Thanks, RJ.
my only question was, Mr. Fitzgerald, have you contacted all the adjacent neighbors? And if you have, it would be very beneficial to see something from them in writing indicating that they're willing to consider this as their new neighbor.
So I haven't physically talked to all of them, but that's why we'd have a town that's supposed to have the public hearing. I put all those addresses and names. I gave them to RJ for a public hearing for the 27th.
Right. And I can confirm that a couple working days ago, we have the sent certified receipts for all those adjacent property owners. So they've received our standard rezoning request notification letter.
Okay, so, but till now, they haven't officially been informed this is happening.
Yeah, it would have been within a day or so ago that they probably would have started getting those.
Okay.
I've received some of them.
And you
Okay.
can do this project without having the driveway on the Longview.
I would have to confirm that, but I don't want to misspeak, but I believe so with Schultz.
Okay, well, with anybody, you could just go out on the 19.
Yeah, we just have to change that, but I thought the idea was it makes it easier for pulling in and out if it went on to Longview. That's all.
Again, easy is a nice thing, but it adds more traffic onto that residential road. That doesn't necessarily need to have it just for your convenience.
I understand. No, it coming out that it's the same difference for the lot. It doesn't make any, it's the same difference for the lot. It just, we thought it was just better.
I get it. Better for you, I understand, but maybe not better for all the people who are living back there, so.
But ideally, you would like to get Schultz to park his cars that he's selling, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, but 1341.10 is vehicle off-site parking, and this is how it reads. Lots or parcels used primarily for parking of client, customer, patron, or student vehicles as a conditional use in all commercial and institutional districts. And it goes on, et cetera. These are cars that people don't even own, that they're for sale. I don't see how you
I
can.
assume so. I can't speak to that. I don't know if it's be service parking or additional park. I don't know. We're talking about a parking lot for the dealership. So I don't know what all, I would think it would be cars for sale, but I can't speak to that because we haven't gone that far yet. We're still in the beginning stages of wrapping up the deal.
I'm trying to see how those cars that are for sale would be cars used primarily for parking of client, customer, patron, or student vehicles. I just don't see that as, and it is a requirement of 1341.10.
Well, that's, it's a reasonable thing. I would think that's because they have a pretty good service facility there too. They might be able to park customer parking there. It gives them additional space.
Are you looking to sell this property at some point?
Of course. Yes, that's.
I mean, let's say the Schultz wanted the property and they made you an offer for it.
Yes.
Would you sell it at that point?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the whole point. That's why we're looking at.
If he sold that property, then Greg, and they what do they call it? Consolidated it with the Schultz property.
Is this before or after you do the reason?
That would have to be after, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wouldn't. They could sell it to Schultz now,
They
and
could.
Schultz could come in
They could.
and ask for rezoning,
They could.
which would make more sense, in my opinion, because then you would have a real reason to rezone it. Right now, we're rezoning it so that it makes itself easier to sell at a higher price point than any of those three homes are valued at. It's currently on the market for $1 million. None of those homes are $330,000 apiece.
You are correct, sir. 100%. No, it was based on being able to sell it to, to Schultz or a dealership. That was the whole point of it.
Well, I like to see you get away from the C3 because C3 does have a gas station. And even though Kim accurately said it wouldn't currently fit on what is there now, I like to see it maybe get away from that C3, which does include a gas station.
So what other
C7 C7 does not include a gas station, and there's a C7 right across the
For
street.
C7 across the street,
Yeah.
can you put a vehicle parking lot in a C7?
Any commercial. This is lots are used primarily is a conditional use in all commercial and institutional districts. And I'm not saying I would approve of C7, but I'm really reluctant to approve of C3. I don't care. I think that it could still be like Rob said. It could be they could buy back lots, and council would go ahead and approve the rezoning of the back lot.
So, okay, I mean,
I'm not saying the C7, I would approve a C7, maybe some other C something.
what do you recommend? What do you?
Well, the only one I thought of is a C7 because it doesn't have it has a gas station, but maybe look at some other ones that are just office buildings, because you can do what you want to do into any commercial district.
Mm-hmm. The fact is that.
Well, you can do it. You can, as it said, you can do it because you think you can do it. Because you're really, to me, you're really not parking primary vehicles for clients, customers, patrons, or students.
They would be coming in under the vehicle parking storage, which is 134109 instead of 10.
Thank you.
Presumably, I mean, that's what it would be, a vehicle storage lot for a car dealership, so.
And what does it say?
Yeah, so that's, and it's very similar to what you pointed out about the 134110. All of those are conditional use options in pretty much all of the commercial and the institutional district in here. The one that has the vehicle storage doesn't have a lock on whether it's client or customer vehicles. It's just you can store heavy equipment there, you can store vehicles there. It's much more broad in what types of storage, you know, potentially could be available.
Yeah, I was using 1341 or 4.10 since they used it in their on their
Oh yeah, again
on their
this was-
concept plate.
Yeah, that's not, we hadn't even gotten to the zoning compliance stage since it was just a concept plan. But I mean, if today this applicant came in and said, I want to do this thing on this property and it's permitted, which use do I use? I would send them to the one that's in 134109 instead of 10.
And as far as going to, Steve, you said we could not put any conditions on it. And so as far as going before the zoning hearing board for a use variance, that is very tough. But I know they give dimensional variances, as Brendan was pointing out, but a use variance is a tough thing to get before the zoning hearing board and to get it approved.
For an R2.
Well, for any.
What do you think? It's the standard is very high. You essentially have to prove that you can't use the property for the purpose for which it is currently zoned. And by simply admitting evidence of the photographs of what's happening there now with the residential structures, you could, in my view, establish that. So it is hard. I'm not telling Mr. Fitzgerald to do that. I'm just putting it out there as one of the few options where we could condition a rezoning. Now, the discussion around using a different zoning district that might be more compliant with what they're trying to do there, that makes sense to me as well, but we still can't place conditions on it. It would be, allowing any use in any, whatever rezoning district we would direct them towards. So I hope that answered the question, Greg.
Come back to, you really can't put any much of a building on here because of the setback, the 100-foot setback. Really, you have no space to build any type of real commercial building at all. Couldn't put a restaurant or McDonald's and still have parking and anything around it. It'd have to be so skinny and pretty much, I don't even know what you put on there. Starbucks there. You really couldn't put anything.
I mean,
really
it's probably, I don't want to speculate for what a developer would or wouldn't do because goodness, sometimes they surprise you. But I mean, anybody could put in for a dimensional variance for any of those, whether the zoning hearing board would grant it based on the fact that it was rezoned into that property and now it needed setback variances. That's up for them to decide, but that seems like just as much of a reach as any other, option. So, a lot of this is speculative. I will say, like, for instance, when they came and asked about submitting an application, took a look at the zoning map and said, well, pretty much the whole Wexford Flats is C3. So, I mean, that's like the district that seems to be most intended for properties that are commercial along here. That doesn't mean that they can't put in an application for C7. There is one piece across the street that's C7. There is one piece across the street. I think that's a fire hall that's institutional. So, I mean, there are other options, but, you would also want to take a look at what else is in that district, not so much a gas station, but there are other uses. I think that's just the thrust of the question is really what you said, Dan, that this is really a question of should this property be in this zone? Unless should this property be this exact use, even if functionally that's what's on the table.
So RJ, I know we're redoing our zoning map and working on changing a lot of things. If you were to make a guess on the new proposed zoning for this area and this property, what would you think would be that new zoning would kind of recommend or think was the best thing, the best zoning for this property? Can you
Well,
venture a guess on that?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I'll preface that by saying I have just done some doodles on our zoning map, but I do expect that whatever the recommendations are, all of that will bear out through a significant public engagement process. So by no means am I making a pronouncement here today as to what is going to happen. That said, just eyeballing it, I hadn't considered this particular property because I wasn't looking at any properties going from residential to commercial when I was sort of just doing that thought exercise. One of the few districts that I didn't have on the list for messing with too much is C3, because it pretty much does what it says on the tin. It's highway commercial. It's, you know, these types of retail and service stations that you typically see along high traffic roads like that. And for the most part, it's zoned pretty appropriately, in my opinion, anyway. So, you know, there are definitely some districts that I would condense down, for example, but C3 was not one that I had on the chopping block. Maybe some adjustments to setbacks for a little bit more of a realistic use of some of those properties that would need to be redeveloped over the years. But not too much a change in what I would suggest for where it be zoned.
So does that mean you think it should stay residential or commercial, looking at the overall zoning of this area?
You mean this particular property?
Yeah, this is what we're talking about.
I don't, honestly, I don't know that I alone am qualified to express an opinion on that. There are many things that I have very specific opinions on, but
Can
you
I
know,
jump in here?
please.
Kim, I think that this should be a commercial property.
I think it should too. I
I
think it
think
should
we should
too.
eliminate all these curb cuts coming out from individual houses onto high volume streets.
Agreed, agreed.
And these houses have not been, as you said, occupied very much lately anyway. So
Agree.
I looked at this as an improvement to the area, even though it's a parking lot.
I agree, Ted, completely. I agree.
That sort of ties into what you asked earlier. Should commercial be extended down here? And I would say
I think that's the big question. Should commercial be extended? It already exists immediately to the north. I am
would say-
concerned as to what it turns into if we give it a blank check.
Exactly. That's
Dan,
exactly what I'm
The
concerned about.
problem is, if you look at the dimensions on this property,
Right.
you can't put a building on it.
That's right.
You have a 100-foot dimension on the back, you have a 30, is that 30 in the front?
Yeah.
That's 130 feet, and the site is only 150 feet deep.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't lend itself to development unless you could somehow tie the next piece of property into that. And there's no proposal on the
I
table to
think if
do
you
that.
built these three same houses on this property today, you'd have to get all kind of variances just to do that. They wouldn't be able to do the exact buildings that are on it would require, you'd have to get new, you couldn't build it. Basically, you'd be here on all three little,
Well,
they're
we
not-
could,
well,
but
they're,
I don't know who would buy it.
yes. Thank you. Okay,
And,
well,
that's the hardship. If there's a hardship, that's the hardship on this property, is that it's a hard sell for people to live on Perry Highway.
Very much so.
That's why they're trying to change it, because it's a hard sell.
that is correct.
Yes. Okay. All right, any other comments?
Before
I'll let,
we take a vote around here, we definitely want to throw out the public comment
I was
on
just gonna do that.
yeah.
Are there any comments from the public? Are there any comments on Zoom?
I don't have anyone that sent me a message to sign up yet. We can give it a couple moments for anyone listening at home who hasn't done this before. With our hybrid format meetings, you can put a request in the chat. Just type in the chat your name and address if you want to provide public comment on this application. And just as an FYI, the public hearing for this is scheduled September 27th at the town council meeting. So this is not the only opportunity to provide public comment. That will all go on the record before town council if anyone chooses to make a comment at that stage. While I've been saying that, I haven't seen anything in the chat yet that somebody is signing up for public comment. Was there anyone in the audience? No? Okay.
Okay. With that in mind, then I would entertain a motion to recommend town council approve the 10185 to 10201 Ferry Highway rezoning application to change the zoning district to C3 from R2. Oh, you can, that could be either approve or reject.
Yeah.
Anybody? Is that you, Rob?
I didn't, I can, I'm not, whatever you want.
Well, we should get this on the record one way or the other and vote on
Yeah.
All right, then I'll make the motion.
it. Okay. Is there a second? Done all yet?
We have to have a second just to put it on the table.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Okay, anyone? Okay, so it's you. Can we just do a roll call? That might be easier for
Okay,
this
let's
one.
do a roll call.
Okay, Rob.
No,
All right. Jonathan.
No.
All right, Dan.
No.
Brendan.
he's muted.
He's giving me a thumbs up, so that's a yes. Okay, Greg.
No.
Ted.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is 2-4 for a yes. So that means that the motion fails.
Mhm.
I will report the vote count to town council.
Okay.
Kim doesn't vote.
Kim does not vote. She will
Not this
vote
time,
down.
not this round. Next round.
Okay, so
Okay.
Brendan and Ted, you were a yes. I've got that recorded. Thank you very much. We will see you on the 27th, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is McCandless Point, mixed-use retail development located at 9101 Perry Highway. And I first have a motion to accept the application for review.
I'll move to accept the application for review.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Hey, RJ, I gotta move my location here at home, so I'll be moving around, but I'll be back in a sec.
I will mute you and then send you a microphone request when you look settled.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments before the session?
I'll just give a brief intro. I think you all probably are familiar with this property, 9101 Perry Highway. It has been a variety of commercial uses over the years. I believe a bar, a bistro, possibly a restaurant. It's come to the zoning hearing board a couple times to do a legal non-conforming use change. Although this is an R2 property, it has historically always been a commercial property as far as I know. And so they are grandfathered in as a legal non-conforming commercial use on this site. The applicant was successful at our last zoning hearing board meeting of receiving an approval of legal non-conforming use change previously from it being a bar restaurant type use, I believe is how it was written, to retail local, which is a particular definition in our zoning code in which your retail is limited to 6,000 square feet or under, and has a little bit more flexibility on parking as compared to our straight retail use, which has a very conservative parking count requirement. So that is how it was approved at the zoning hearing board in order to give some more flexibility to fit what is a pretty unique site. To say the least. Another commercial property that's R2 right on the edge of Perry Highway. So,
Now, how does that affect setbacks?
you
Does that
know,
mean the existing setbacks are now the,
I'm gonna have to take a look at how it was reviewed previously over the years, because as I understand it, Bruce had worked with the property a couple times and there may be a precedent in how he interpreted that, but the rear yard setback has already received a variance for essentially the same footprint that they have here. So the rear yard is really the one that's material. I think all the others, would meet the code anyway. And there's also a second lot on the back that I believe is undeveloped right now, that did receive a use variance to extend the parking for this development onto that lot. That was already successful at the zoning hearing board pre-COVID, in fact. So without further ado, I think we can turn it over to the applicant.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I can. First off, good evening, members of Planning Commission. My name is Michael Len. I'm Director of Engineering for Sheasley & Associates. We are the site civil engineers for the project. With me this evening is Jesse Kinserick. He's from RSSC Architecture, and also the owner of the property and developer, Ron Franco. So, RJ, can you put the aerial image of the site? So,
Just a second,
Yeah,
I'll look
take
that up here. Was that in the original package or was that in the new document that you sent over today?
that would have been this afternoon.
Okay,
Yes. It should say Google. area.
perfect. That's what I wish everyone would tell me, what their file names are.
Okay. As you can see, this is the location of the site. It is situated on the western side of Perry Highway, bounded to the north by Perry Vista Avenue and to the south by Mohican Avenue. The site is approximately, or the combination of the sites is approximately about 0.9 acres. And what the owner proposes to do is redevelop the site. Currently on the site, as you can see, there's an existing restaurant or banquet facility, and then a parking lot that is in essence a sea of asphalt, which goes all the way to the existing curb lines of the bounding roads, as you can see, Perry Vista, Route 19, and Mohican Avenue. What the owner proposes to do is redevelop this site into a better condition of mixed-use retail and local retail, and that's, as RJ described, that use of 600, I believe. If you can repeat that, RJ, what that use was.
You mean the retail local,
Retail local,
6,000
yes.
square feet or less for the building,
Yes.
which this one does comply with, I believe.
Yes, the site is currently zoned as R2, and as RJ mentioned, we have requested and gotten approved on 4 variances. Those variances are parking on an R2 parcel, the proposed parking stall dimension of 9 by 18, minimum rear setback required, and then also the non-conforming use from a restaurant banquet facility to a mixed-use retail or retail local non-conforming use. So,
Let me just ask you, on the variance, I get, you went before whole zoning hearing, but you got, it's 40 feet is the normal variance, minimum 40 feet is a normal setback for the rear. You got 0.6 feet? Ooh,
That was what was approved.
Lord.
Yeah,
0.6.
0.6. I think that
Oh,
actually may
I see
have
it right
been
here.
greater than the last rear setback variance they were coming for. Previous to this non-conforming use change, they had been looking at a dental office. And I think that one had an even smaller setback in the rear. So,
Wow.
yeah, we have gained half a foot.
Is that just that little section that cuts in?
you mean in the rear of the?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
So 6 inches.
Essentially.
You can also see from the aerial image, the other parcel that RJ spoke about is being undeveloped. That's located on Mohican Avenue, and that'll be used for parking. I'll display that in the site plan here in a second. So basically, like I said, the site right now, it is not being used as any use. It's basically barren on the site. So I mean, it looks like, I'll say, quote, a sea of asphalt right now that goes from property line to back of curb on Perry Avenue, Perry Highway, Perry Vista, and Mohican Avenue. So what the owner and developer proposes to do is develop this into one single building, approximately 5,800, my apologies, square feet, and improve the parking situation on the site and the vehicular circulation throughout the site also. So RJ, could you put up the site plan or even the grading plan?
All right,
That would be
Let's see.
C103 or C104, I believe.
all right. This might take a
No.
second to download, but we did just upgrade our Wi-Fi, so faster than it used to be. And you want the set from today, right?
It could be set from today, yeah. That'd be
All
awesome.
right, so you want C101. I've got demo plan for that.
Try 103 or 104.
Grading is 103.
Either 102 or 103.
Yeah.
Actually, 103 would probably be better. Should be good.
There we go.
Okay, I was just corrected. My apologies. The setback that we got the variance proof of was 2 feet. So,
2 feet,
2 feet.
okay.
okay, these are the proposed conditions for the site, proposed improvements. What happened is the approximately 5,800 square foot building is located in the center of the site. And what is basically the parking is now more well defined to make it, to have a safer vehicular circulation around the site. Based on the variance for parking, we were going to be required approximately 23 parking spaces. It's like we have provided 36 for the site. Along those lines, we have run a vehicular turning radii throughout the site to see what the flow would be for a box truck, a garbage truck accessing the trash enclosure on the southern part of the site, a fire truck, and also an ambulance emergency vehicle. And we were able to prove that does adequately maneuver, all vehicles adequately maneuver through the site. We forwarded that information to RJ this morning. So
We haven't had the engineers take a look at it, but we do have it all in our possession.
okay.
What size delivery truck?
It was a box truck. I can give you the exact dimensions if you'd like that. It
So
would be a
that's
box-
not,
It would be a box delivery truck.
so it wouldn't be like a Cisco single wheel delivery truck.
It would have an overall length of 30 feet, an overall width of 8 feet. Body height of 13.5 feet.
All right, I'll defer to Dan if he thinks that's
Dan, by the way.
a
Yeah,
reasonable.
yeah,
size.
we got-
I didn't know.
We've got Mike Albright here,
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
but in theory, he's Dan.
Yeah, we haven't got a chance to review those plans yet. I think they were submitted this morning, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at
Oh.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Gateways in receipt of those also. Stormwater management. As I mentioned earlier, the site is currently in a sea of asphalt. What we've done is we've actually decreased the impervious area on the site by providing green areas along the perimeter, or along the length of Perry Highway, Mohican Avenue, and Perry Vista Avenue. Basically, the way the site flows, the runoff from the site flows is the runoff from the northern portion of the site runs to an existing inlet along Perry Highway, which it currently does. However, there is a lesser amount of runoff going to that inlet. The remainder of the site runs towards, including the roof drains from the building, runs towards a proposed stormwater management facility, which is located on the southwestern portion of the site. The stormwater management facility is a storm chamber. It's proposed to be a storm chamber facility, which I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. Basically, it is like an arch, plastic arch, which promotes infiltration back into the ground to meet the township ordinances. So, and we approved that there is less runoff running from the site after the stormwater management facility is installed than what is currently there, and it does meet township regulations. But not only did we correct or meet township regulations, we've improved the stormwater situation on the site. Currently, the majority of the site flows overland off the site along Mohican and across Mohican. Right now, we contain that runoff by the southern curb along the parking lot, and that will thus reduce the amount of overland runoff that go across Mohican
and affect any downstream property owners. In essence, all the runoff will be underground instead of above ground.
And that catch basin you're tying into, is that a town structure or is that somebody else's?
We believe that's a town structure located on Mohican Avenue.
And they've confirmed that it can take that connection?
There would be
The
less,
outlet?
there would be less going there than is currently going there.
Well, you just said it was running across Mohican.
Oh, the overland flow?
Well, you said the existing conditions going across Mohican. Now you're connecting the outlet from your detention system into a catch basin that's on the north side of Mohican. It's probably not seeing water now, that water now.
Yeah, well, that inlet does receive the overland runoff from the site, from Mohican Avenue. Anything flows down Mohican Avenue goes to that inlet.
All right, I'll assume Gateway will check that, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So, landscaping. We have provided what we believe to be adequate landscaping on the site. However, this situation is a little different that we're working with the town on. That typically buffer yards are defined by, different zoning districts of sites. For example, we are in R2, we are in R2, any adjacent zoning district would, there'd be a buffer yard. Well, the adjacent site to the west of the site, southwest of the site is of the same use or same zoning district. So we're working with the town right now to develop what would be, we feel would be adequate landscaping for the change in use, not the zoning district for the two properties. What we've concluded upon right now that a buffer yard C would be required along the property lot or adjacent to the property owner to the southwest, and then along the northern boundary of the southern parking lot, and then the western boundary behind the building towards the existing condos or townhomes.
And if you don't mind, I'll just jump in a little bit.
Please do.
And because, yeah, that buffer yard grid is fun to read and yeah. So particularly with the section of the site that I'm circling right here on the screen, as we just discussed a little bit ago, there's a very small setback in the existing site as well as in the proposed redevelopment. Physically, you couldn't fit what would be a buffer yard that typically, let's say if this was a C3 property, abutting, a residential property, you need a buffer yard that's at least 10 to 15 feet wide. Obviously that is physically impossible. And as kind of looking through the notes of how this plan was being dealt with the last time that it was coming through land development, when it was potentially that North American dental, it looks like at the time Bruce was using a lot of the R2 standards because it was an R2 property, even though it was more of a commercial use. So what I've been discussing with Mr. Len here is basically how do you strike a balance between what really the site actually needs for buffering, considering that change in use, compared to what if you just treated it as an R2 site, as it seems that, some of the review was prior, you would end up with a lot less buffering than you really need. So this buffer yard C is kind of the middle ground, particularly on the northern end of the site. There are still canopy trees that are involved. There are still several shrubs, whereas you might get one tree if you just went by that R2 buffer code. So on the one hand, some of the sections are kind of going to need, one big buffering modification request because the site is historically so non-conforming. I think really when looking at the buffer yard here, it would be best to have a discussion about what is the function of the buffering material that's being put there. And is it going to adequately block from light, sound, et cetera, as much as possible with the topography and placement of this site. So with that in mind, I'd suggest that we kind of think about this plan more that way, because there's no way they're going to get out without needing some kind of modification request because of that very short setback, no matter what.
Yeah, and we're cognizant of the sensitivity of the adjacent landowner to the southwest. We want to ensure that there's going to be no parking or vehicle lights flashing in their living room windows. The types of plantings that we use, that we propose, should be adequate enough to shield that year round. We're proposing a few evergreen trees there that are at a height at about 5 feet. That should, protect the adjacent property owner from any glare going through their house or coming to their.
Have you spoken to that property owner? Because they were pretty vociferous the last time.
He had these plans 3 months ago.
Okay.
Before we went to planning and zoning. We're actually giving him, right now there's a 0 setback to his house. You know, there's a fence. We're giving 20 feet for his side yard to use for whatever he wants to put. Swing set. And then we're gonna mound the dirt on the southwest corner and plant or paint. Right. So he's very happy. Here. He didn't come the last meeting. He's here.
Okay.
We've got him.
All right.
So, permitting for the site. We are working with Gateway Engineers on the stormwater management analysis. They had some comments. We're going to be addressing those comments to them. Submitted a highway occupancy permit to PennDOT for all work related within the PennDOT right of way. And that includes any stormwater that will be going to that existing inlet that I mentioned earlier. They have to sign off on that and on that also. And any grading and any removal of existing asphalt. Like I mentioned earlier, we're improving the situation from the asphalt from the rear curb. So they have to approve anything within the right of way. In addition, we will be submitting a PennDOT traffic signal permit to retime the timing of the existing light at the intersection there along Perry Highway. Excuse me. We are currently in discussions with the Mccanna Township Sanitary Authority regarding approval of a sanitary planning module exemption. Right now, we are finalizing our calculations for the proposed flow for the site, sanitary flow for the site. In comparison to what is there, we have pulled the sanitary records from the past 4 years of when the existing restaurant was functioning, and we're currently discussing that with them right now. And finally, there is an existing gas line main along the southern or southeastern portion of the site. There is right away, and we are currently in discussions with Buckeye Partners, who is the owner of the line, regarding what work can be completed and what regulations we have to follow. We've gone out there, we've they marked the location of the line, we've surveyed it, and we've submitted our site plans to review to Buckeye Partners and start the process of getting an approval letter from that entity. So today we submitted a response letter to Gateway Engineers into the township for the comments that were made in the August 31st, 2021 comment letter. So they've acknowledged receipt of that letter and the revised plans that accompany it. So basically what we'd like to do is we would like to request a recommendation of a conditional approval from Planning Commission contingent upon addressing all of Gateway Engineers' comments that they have listed in that letter. Approval of the PennDOT HOP permit, the highway occupancy permit. Approval from PennDOT of this traffic signal permit. Approval from Mccanna Township Sanitary Authority regarding our sanitary planning module exemption. And then also approval from Buckeye Partners on work within their right-of-way and gas. So.
Do you want to go to the engineer's comments or your questions first?
You have comments?
Yeah, sorry. So he said they did submit new plans, which may have addressed some of our comments, but we did have some comments just to give maybe a brief overview. A number of just planned cleanup items, such as tying existing buildings to property lines, showing adjacent zoning districts, adding property information and setbacks. The one thing was under the sidewalk was not proposed along the street in accordance with the ordinance. I think it comes through the property. If you want,
Oh, you want me to?
if you want to, if you have the plan, so that's.
Let's do the site plan, so that way it kind of covers everything.
And then also, I guess, confirming the site triangles for the site. The landscape plan didn't have all the, I think, requirements on there. So it didn't look like it met the requirements for it, but I think if you provide them, we'll take a look at that in the revised plans. Just a few minor erosion sediment control cleanup items. Quite a few stormwater management comments, mostly minor. Looks like there was some inconsistencies between the plan and the report as well as some design not being in compliance with the ordinance. There's a swale on the west side of the property. So we thought maybe it had the potential to impact the adjacent owner. Maybe it's just clean up some grading items there that might show it coming back on the property. Adding easements for the sewers, including an operation and maintenance plan for the site. And then we have a few traffic items as well. Just to note that the project will require an HOP, which you already mentioned, be submitted for. We had a question about the loading and where deliveries will occur. Doesn't appear to be enough space, but if they're providing the truck turning templates, we can take a look at that. Also, just confirm if parking is adequate without knowing the use. Our concern would be if we don't know the use and another restaurant goes in there, it appears that it would be deficient. So I think knowing the use beforehand would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the zoning hearing board, yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I don't mean, what we provided as part of today's submission, a letter or a memorandum from David E. Wooster and Associates stating the trip generation, which defined the parking.
Okay, so that wasn't submitted that was submitted today. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. We'll submit today. And then, like we already covered, just review and approval by MTSA, town fire code official, and the Buckeye pipeline. So that's more or less some of ours.
I think part of some of the different things discussed, for example, and we are working together on the buffer yard issue, because again, it's a weird property, but it might be better to have in writing explicitly, what the difference is. That's usually what we have for each type of modification request. We have a request in writing where they're showing exactly what they're proposing versus, what the sidewalk. I know that's been a really hot topic of
What is your
interest lately.
position on the sidewalk?
Okay. Well, what we did, we investigated how a sidewalk situated on the site and work within our site constraints, and determined that the only place to really put a sidewalk within the constraints would be along Perry Highway, and that sidewalk would be situated within the PennDOT right of way. The installation of that sidewalk would require PennDOT to move numerous traffic signs, whether it be speed limit, the sign says Route 19. Also, the route would interfere with the signal poles and multiple utilities that would be situated by the entrance. What we proposed is what we believe is a safer alternative to having a sidewalk within the right of way. I mean, actually, one of the safety concerns is somebody's walking down the sidewalk that close to the road along Route 19. It's a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. What would prevent that? What would prevent a car from jumping up on the curb and entering the sidewalk? Pedestrian traffic. So that's definitely a concern of ours. What we've proposed is to, I guess, reroute the pedestrian traffic that is, through the site, through various crosswalks along our building, and then back down to corner of the site. So in essence, it's point A and point B are the same. However, what we're proposing is a safer route. Another safety feature is those pedestrians would not have to cross through the main entrance of the site. Then they would not have to worry about any, don't walk signs, looking over their shoulder either way of oncoming traffic into the site. And then based on one of Gateway Engineers' comments today, or in the letter, they recommended putting some kind of bollards in the sidewalk to protect the pedestrian traffic along the sidewalk from vehicular traffic. And we're looking at that saying whether it be bollards or some other methods that may be more aesthetically pleasing to the site to prevent traffic from entering into that pedestrian thoroughfare. So what we feel is we have a safer alternative than what would normally be there.
And what about sidewalks on Perry Vista and Mohican?
Along Perry Vista, we believe that the grading would be too difficult to get an existing sidewalk on that side. And also that would be within the PennDOT right of way. I'm sorry, let's see, that would be within the right of way for the site outside of our property. Mohican, it would be tough because our grading pushes up right against the base of the curb for the site. Again, the topography does not lend itself to have a sidewalk there.
Excuse me, I'm trying to get an aerial on Google to see this site. I'm familiar with this site. It's quite flat. And I noticed that you don't show the bus stop on here. So it would seem that a sidewalk that went to the bus stop would be a really good idea. I don't think people are going to walk completely out of their way the way you have designed this. There currently is a sidewalk along the highway there.
It's paved, but I don't think there's a defined sidewalk.
Yeah, they held the parking lot back. They have a used to be like a guardrail curve, holding the parking lot off.
Street views for Perry Highway, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a Google, I can't get.
Yeah, we provided RJ with one, so we can take a look at it. It would probably be Perry Highway or Perry View, Street View 1.
Okay,
There you
so, okay, so look how flat that is. I don't really see a hardship with grading there. It looks like you would very easily be able to put a sidewalk down on Mohican as well as in the front of that property because there's virtually one there now.
The one in front of the property, that would be within the PennDOT right of way, and we would have to go through the approval process.
And no, you could back it up onto your property, which is where the sidewalks go.
Or you can move a couple signs.
That would depend on the approval of PennDOT. We would,
I get it.
yeah, and also there is a gas line right in that corner of the site.
Can we
Yeah, I
look
see it.
up?
You can still put a sidewalk over that.
Yes, you can. Can you look a little further north, please?
That would be Street View 2.
Okay, we'll pull that up. Give me a second.
So I'm not buying the sidewalk argument.
Me neither.
Yeah, we need sidewalks. This is a busy area. There is a bus stop right there. And you are proposing a sidewalk that doesn't go to the bus stop, that in fact goes to your property and then comes back out, which no one is going to do. You have to have you need a sidewalk there.
Can you point to where the bus stop is? Is
You
currently
should know
located?
where the bus stop is. It's right there on that pole. See that pole there with that little square sign? That means that's bus stop. And it's on,
Are you talking about right here, Kim?
yeah,
And there's a crosswalk there too.
yeah. So, and you got no sidewalk there? What are you doing?
Are there buses currently stop on Perry Highway? I thought they were going up at night.
I thought they were going back to CCAC, Greg, but I know
Yeah,
they were
are, they
the
are.
guys in
they
their
are.
routes.
Yeah.
Kim, if you look at our site plan, we do provide a crosswalk from our building.
No
To
one
that
is gonna,
area.
no one is gonna do that. No one is gonna walk this way and then this way to do that. They're gonna cut across there. They're not gonna do that.
Yeah, and there's one there now, so find a way to keep it.
If I may, I'm attorney at the here on behalf of the applicant. So what's currently there, the northern part of the property over by Perry Vista, I don't know if you guys can see me, it's not as wide as what's south of that intersection. It's very tight. I mean, I can show you a street view. We can go on street view. You can get it. You can see that literally a mirror of a car is reaching over that intersection. And if you're standing there, you know, with how big cars are today too, that could easily nip you right in the arm and you could get seriously hurt. regarding that too, we're requesting a modification from the requirement. There's no doubt that the requirement is that it has to be in the right of way. The zoning ordinance is clear that we can provide a route that is, and I'll just cite it to you. Sorry, I have it here. I think it says, let's see, demonstrated to provide equal or better result. So we think, first of all, we believe that this is a better result. Whether you believe somebody's going to follow what we designed for them or not, I think it's clear that this is safer than walking right along a road where it is 35 miles an hour. But I mean, I can easily tell you I've hit 50 on that road and going over traffic. And so 35 might be the speed limit, but that's certainly not the rate in which people are going. And so, maybe they don't follow it, but our duty is to provide them an equal way to access the surrounding areas, even though no other areas have sidewalks, which I know is not an argument, but it's still to be point to be at least said. But here we're giving them access, as Mike said, not in front of a major intersection where there is no turn signal, right? So how many times have we all just tried to jump a left, make a Pittsburgh left, and try to make that left, and oh no, here comes somebody crossing there in that intersection. That's very dangerous. So we got them away from that, as well as provide them security with the bollards in front of our property, so that way they're totally protected from cars coming down in front of our property, as well as the winter maintenance. It's more likely that sidewalk in front of the building is going to be shoveled than it is the sidewalk out in front. So we think that certainly is an equal result, if that, but certainly we believe it's better, but it's certainly equal to having it run right along Route 19 in the PennDOT right of way, contingent upon PennDOT giving us the approvals, which is not a guarantee, plus PennDOT having to move all those signs. We can't move those signs, plus Buckeye moving their gas line markers, which again, we can't move those gas line markers. So what we can control, we have tried to control and provide at least an equal alternative to that requirement. So hopefully that can alleviate some of that.
We love sidewalks.
And I've been here 20 some years, and I know past performance doesn't guarantee future returns or whatever it is, but as far as I'm aware, no one's ever been hit on that sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, there's no places to walk. There's a fence there, they don't walk there.
But they will
Put a
walk.
sidewalk right on the highway. They're gonna walk.
You can check with the police department. I'm sure they can give you statistics if somebody's been hit there.
They don't walk there, though. They don't walk there.
And same with Mohican. There's a sidewalk there that you're not showing. So
Put a sidewalk right on the highway.
What did they do up at the community college? They put a parking lot in and a connection to the community college. I believe they just put a fairly high curb and a sidewalk against the road.
yes,
That's right. That's correct.
And I think that was dictated, if I remember correctly, by PennDOT.
Yeah, there's a steep grade there too, Ted. That hillside rises up. But
But I
yeah,
mean, even whether they had to regrade or not, I believe that was the requirement of PennDOT to do it that way.
right.
So,
I guess I'd like to just ask, don't mind me interrupting, just what are we not providing in this alternative method? Because what we will do is we will dig up all that pavement, so there will not be a way to go. So that somebody's not gonna see, it's gonna be is it gonna be landscape?
Yeah, it's gonna be grass.
Landscape. So somebody's really gonna walk on grass rather than walking through a designated crosswalk into a nicely manufactured sidewalk, out another designated crosswalk into another manufactured sidewalk. I just don't see why this isn't serving the purpose that the ordinance is designed to do, which is provide pedestrian access.
With all due respect, the zoning code requires that you show it where it's supposed to go. Then you ask for a modification, if I recall correctly, RJ. And
That is
that's-
typically what we ask people to do, yeah.
So you need to show it where it's supposed to, where it goes along the side on the street. And then you can try and make your case to some other people on why that's not the best situation, even though there's one there now. So don't want to cut this discussion short, but that's kind of how it goes.
I would also add, this is the town attorney, that requests for modifications are discretionary on part of town council. So I think it's in the applicant's best interest to take the feedback they're hearing tonight and put a new plan together. And then if you want to continue to make an argument that this plan is equal or better that you've presented to us, you can do so. But ultimately, the modifications are discretionary in nature. So I think you've gotten a lot of strong feedback tonight. I hope you can, hope you heard it and you can address the concerns raised tonight.
Another point, how wide is your opening off of 19?
Currently or proposed?
Proposed.
Looks really wide.
Yeah, I thought that there was a dimensional standard for that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, do we have any maximum?
Yeah.
I'd have to double check. There we need to do come up with.
That would be part of the HOP review, although Ted.
Yeah, PennDOT will dictate, I mean, we'll adjust that accordingly.
Well, how wide is it?
I will walk, please, every one of you, will walk. It's acres, it's closer to area. It's not the same width as the one we showed you on Mohican. It's acres to a very, probably within 2 feet.
Now, I'm talking about the driveway going into. How
Yes.
wide is it?
Oh, we understand.
Some area it is. So it's not a sidewalk. I want to get away from that because it really is just a pavement that was extended to actually within the right of way. It probably should never be extended within that right of way.
It's a lot wider than Cumberland Road based on what I looked at.
We have a photo here. Please go walk.
Is this the Mohican view?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
okay?
wrong.
Why can't
Well,
I
that's
get it?
compared to this.
That's fair. Okay.
Is there a problem? Give me a number on that or what? All I asked was how wide is it?
Oh, I apologize. I'm just looking at my plan, so I can give you
Okay.
a trend estimation.
There was a lot of other problems.
My apologize.
All right, let's see. Can't pull it up.
I would say that it is approximately 40 feet just from scaling it off visually. No, that it actually improves the entrance to where it currently is. It provides the curbing that PennDOT's going to require within their right of way for the entrance. So, and plus that the width of the entrance will have to be approved by PennDOT. So basically, it's going to be a more well-defined entrance than what is currently there.
I'm sure it is. I don't know if we have a maximum in our code. I think it's certainly wider than normal. And the ends, I think it's sure the ends just going straight out and stopping as opposed to curving or doing something at the street.
It blends into the existing curbing along here.
But it does it at a 90-degree angle.
That is correct. The plans that we submitted to PennDOT has a radius, I believe it's a 10-foot radius,
Okay.
which is acceptable for the
that's-
speed of the 35
That
miles.
sounds better. Also, is this your dumpster location here in the back?
Yes, it is.
Are you going to pave out in front of it for the trucks?
We can't, well, first of all, that, I believe that is a concrete pad that the dumpster is going to be placed on. And we can provide possibly,
No,
a
just
thicker-
as just a general rule.
yeah, it's going to be paved.
Wherever the dumpster is, you need to have a concrete pad out in front of it so that you don't get
I agree.
ruts
Oh,
in
yeah.
it.
It will be concrete.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ted, also on the dumpster, I don't see any details of what the dumpster enclosure is going to look like.
Okay, that's located on one of our detail sheets, which was provided to us by RCC Architecture. I'll try to get you that exact
Number, yeah.
C601.
Right.
Some sort of gating.
Correct.
Oh, there you go. Very light.
So it's a split face block. Is it painted or is it just going to be some other?
It's like the Chipotle next to the Variance. Right, nice outside building in the south.
Not sure where that section's cut at.
Are those just metal rods in there? Is that
No,
what
it's
I'm-
not raw, it's like a metal,
Like a deck panel.
not board.
No, okay,
Looks like slats of something.
okay.
Won't be able to see through.
Okay. So there's no space in between this.
Okay, good.
So what would the color of the exterior of the dumpster enclosure be?
We haven't checked colors yet. for the building.
So it's unknown, okay. Be curious what that looks like. And then I had my last question, Ted, I don't know if we're going around the table or not, but I really would like to see the parking calcs.
Are they not on here, anyone?
When you say
Yeah.
parking spots, are you talking about the traffic generation memo from Worcester or?
However you determine how many parking spots you need for each one of those 3 or 4, whatever it's gonna be there.
Okay.
4 spaces.
Yeah, we have documentation of that. So.
Okay.
And then RJ, I assume in the future you will review the signs that they're showing out there.
Oh, yes, yeah, those are just done separately as a sign permit process.
Right, okay.
Just in case the sidewalk horse has not been beaten to death, I'm looking at this sidewalk and your sidewalks don't even make it to the crosswalk either. So
Can you be a little more specific? I apologize.
it would be helpful. Okay, so do you see where the sidewalk is on Perry, the crosswalk is on Perry Highway?
The one going over to Cumberland?
See 100.
The one that crosses over to the other side of Perry Highway. I think. it
Yeah,
goes
that
to
would
the
be,
one
that would be
right.
Cumberland on the other side. Ken.
Okay, okay, so.
Cumberland dead ends right there.
So where is that crosswalk?
Here and there probably, because those are where the ADA strip is right now.
RJ, they're supposed to know the answers to this. And can you put that back to where their sidewalks are? Because from the way I am seeing this, it looks like there is no way to get, see, it looks like it's right there at the little end where the handicap parking is. It looks like the crosswalk is kind of there, but you see their sidewalk goes between the handicap spaces and then it ends. So where do you, how do you get to the crosswalk?
If you move to, we do provide access across Perry Highway. Go to the next crosswalk further south. We added an existing concrete sidewalk, which joins to the existing sidewalk, which was built there on Perry Highway, which then connects to the existing crosswalk across Perry Highway.
I think there's a crosswalk button there, if I'm looking at this correctly, to cross. Yes, there is. There's a crosswalk button right there. So that's where people are going to cross in the southern, right below the handicap parking, because that's where the button is to stop traffic to cross.
You're talking along the northern crosswalk, is that correct?
Yes, I am. That's all I have to say on sidewalks. I know you're glad. Sidewalk needs to go to the crosswalk.
Ted, I just had one comment. The last time this property was being developed or proposed to be developed, the property owners across Mohican were very vocal about the excess water coming into their properties. And I know you spoke earlier about the steps you've taken to alleviate that. I just want to make sure that they're adequate, and I suppose Gateway will look at that. But those were of all the neighbors in the area, the ones just to the south across Mohican were the ones who were most concerned about what was to happen. So as long as you're taking them into consideration.
No, that's very understandable. Yeah, we recognize that. And we know they were experiencing a problem. That was one of the reasons why we wanted to capture the runoff and lessen the amount going across.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Before we decide what to do at this juncture, I did receive a message that although we don't at this point have a motion on the table, there was a member of the audience that wanted to speak. That is a property owner from the neighborhood. I think maybe south of the site. It's off one of the side streets, but I just sent him a microphone and camera request. I will take the screen share down so we can see him if he comes on. Let me get his exact name, but I know that his Zoom box is Brian's iPhone. Brian Donnelly from across Mohican, if I have that correct. Brian, you are able to speak now if you'd like.
Hi, yes, my name is Brian Donnelly. I am the owner of the building at 9043 Perry Highway, just south of this proposed site. I'm all for a new building because I think the one that's there has kind of run its due. I am concerned about, and my business partner and I are concerned about the water runoff. This is the first time we've seen anything that has shown, a capture, but nobody has actually reached out to us or talked to us. My big concern is we have a basin in the back of our property that is connected to Mohican that would eventually receive all this water. I've spoken to a township worker named Andy. I've talked to Jeff, the planning supervisor, with no response, but I would like to make sure that this is all connected in a way that the water doesn't come into our property. The catch basin in our property is starting to deteriorate. So I think there's some improvement that needs to go down kind of the line. Again, I'm all for this property being redeveloped into something better and nicer to improve the area. But again, we have not been reached out by a developer, the owner, and maybe it's not the appropriate time, but I am just voicing my opinion that, I'd like to see something more than just right in that area be approved so it doesn't become a cascade of problems down the hill.
Brian, I do just want to let you know, my name's RJ Susko. I'm the planning director. You may have spoken with the public works supervisor. His name is Jeff.
Jeff, yes.
Yes, do feel free to give us a call at the planning office, though, if you have any particular questions about this development that I could answer.
Okay. Well, I've contacted Jeff once by phone, once by email. I still haven't gotten any response, so I'll reach out to you.
Mike, is that something that you guys look into, where the water goes from offsite?
Yeah, essentially they have to prove that whatever's getting to the point that there's going to be less than what is currently there. And they do have a curb there, so it's going to collect the water that's currently just running uncontained off of there. And that
there is a curb on Mohican, but again, it goes down into our pathway. And several years the township came in and lined the pipe underneath the Mohican catch basin. But again, when they did some of that work, there was some other work that wasn't really done to satisfactory. So I'm just concerned that, again, it doesn't become a cascade of issues down the hill, so to speak, right? But I am all for a new development in that area, so I think it can improve the overall area.
You'll be getting less water. Per minute or something like that?
Cubic feet per second. That's the way we typically measure it.
Cubic feet per second with the new development than the old, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, basically what we're doing is, we're reducing the impervious on the site by, I'm gonna say approximately 10%. That would meet normal stormwater management criteria. Mccanna's code also has certain performance criteria that we have to take certain levels back to. It adds an additional amount of detention that we must provide. So there would be even less water based off just normal situation. I guess your stormwater management criteria is fairly stringent.
The plain English one might be, not only do you have to control everything coming off your site, but you have to do a little more than what was being done.
You have to improve the situation.
Okay, Brian, if that was the entirety of your public comment, I'm gonna go ahead and shut your mic off now.
That's fine. There were some other issues that were brought up in comment that I never really thought of, but I may have more comments down the road. However, I'm still in support of a new building put there because that one has kind of run its course, and I don't think anything will go back into it until it is brought up to a better level. So we're good for now. Thank you.
Okay.
It does look like that 9043 has a sidewalk directly in front of it, right on Perry Highway. If you look at the Google.
Is that the building to the south?
The gentleman who just spoke.
Okay. Yeah, there are sidewalks along 19 in various spots. They just don't all connect at this point. That's part of our problem. We want to have a continuous sidewalk along 19. I think you probably got the impression that we're pro sidewalk here, so if you could put along there, that would be ideal. Do we have enough information to do something?
Table for less. It's ultimately, it's up to you all. I mean, I think that, obviously, whatever they might come back with is to the sidewalk configuration. Typically, when we have modification requests, we do give you all the opportunity to actually have them laid out as like, this is modification request number 1. You're voting on the record that you should approve or deny it. At this juncture, we don't have all of the written modification requests. So it's up to you whether you want to try and make a motion on the fly or if you'd be more comfortable seeing revisions next time.
Well, I don't want to send something to council that's not complete.
Yeah, I would propose table instead.
Yeah, I think so. Do we have a motion then to table?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jonathan. Okay.
Right, revisions are due 2 full weeks before the meeting to get a comment letter back in time.
And can we get the parking calc information to RJ the next time it comes through?
Yeah, we just got it this morning. I think I uploaded everything on the Dropbox, but if not, I will double check.
Parking calc, we'll look at the sidewalk, we'll reach out to PennDOT, get their feedback on things. Any other things specifically you guys would like to see us correct, modify, change?
I'd like to see some landscaping in the front of the building, along the street.
Along the street.
You show some right there in your little drawing. We show some right there.
How about for the buffer yard, since this is kind of a weird moving target with how non-conforming the site is, if we could just get pulled out from the landscaping plan set, that itemized list of the trees and discuss basically, this is the reason that we're choosing the standards. This will shield this property in such and such way. So that way we have something that's a little more, again, plain English for everybody to take a look at when you're voting on that modification request.
Okay. And then engineers' comments, we can help flush out and more time to review.
Yep. Anything else?
We should particularly.
So just to clarify, we're talking about sidewalks front and sides.
Okay.
Perry Vista, Perry Highway and Mohican, just so you understand what we're looking for. And then Mike, I assume Gateway will do some downstream review so that we can assure the adjacent property owner that although we're retaining water, the pipe size is still adequate to handle that direct connection to that catch basin now.
Yes, that's correct. And PennDOT's going to take a review as well. So yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item is the approval of the August 3rd, 2021 minutes. Motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve the minutes, August 3rd.
Second.
I have to say I wasn't here, so.
Oh.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
And you wanted to abstain, okay, so that's 501.
There is no other general public comment, right?
Well, I don't see anybody else on here. If you have general public comment, type in the chat now. Otherwise, it is 9:30.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
Thank you very much,
thank
guys.
you.